So now we're going to talk about the fourth factor of credit. And this one is also very important. It's known as credit mix, and it counts for about 10% of your total credit score, right? So what is credit mix? So the scoring algorithm basically wants to see how you as a consumer are at managing different types of credit. One of the biggest problems I see is that so many people focus on just having one type of credit on their credit report, which is known as revolving. So credit cards are just one type of credit known as revolving. Why are they known as revolving? Well, if you look at the picture right here, it's kind of like a revolving door, right? The reason is because you have one set credit limit on that credit card, and you have the ability to use that credit card to make purchases, and then you could pay the credit card off, and then it frees up your available line of credit again. It's kind of like a revolving door with no end in sight. The next type is basically installment credit. The reason why it is a little bit different than the revolving credit that we just spoke about is because this one, like let's say for example, like a car loan, right? It has a term, meaning it has an end date in mind. So let's say you got a car loan for 72 months. Every time you make a payment, let's say you make the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth payment, you don't get that line of credit back. It just goes towards the principal of that loan. And that's why it's known as an installment credit. And it's very different than a revolving credit, such as like a credit card, right? The next one is charge cards. Now, luckily for you, there's only one bank that really gives out charge cards anymore, and that's American Express. What makes a charge card different than a revolving card is that charge cards have to be paid in full every single month. Now, please don't confuse this with me saying that American Express only issues charge cards. American Express also issues regular credit cards, and they issue charge cards. Now, how do you know the difference? Well, I'll give you a very simple way to know. Whenever you see any of those cards like the American Express Platinum, the Centurion, the Gold, the Plum, and the Green, they're most likely charge cards, right? So whenever somebody tells you like, oh, look, I got no limit on this card, it's most likely a charge card, right? And yeah, those cards don't really have no limit. They have a preset limit on the back end. It just fluctuates month to month based on the patterns that you put on that card, based on the spending patterns you put on that card. Now, how do you establish credit mix, right? Well, the easiest way is simple, get a loan, right? And in case you're wondering, but Edgar, when we joined this community, I thought you said you were gonna show us how to build your credit without getting into a bunch of debt. Now, my question is, who said anything about getting into debt? Because I'm gonna show you 2 ways to get a loan reporting on your credit report without having to get into a bunch of debt. The first way is you're gonna get a credit builder loan. A credit builder loan is very, very, very simple. You basically make an agreement with a bank to pay them anywhere from $25 to $100 a month for 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, you're gonna get every single cent that you put into that account minus the interest rate that you agreed upon with the bank. Now, think of it as a savings account that builds credit, because every single month that you make that payment on time that you agreed upon with the bank, they're gonna report that to the credit bureaus as an on-time payment. So it's also gonna report on the credit report as an installment loan. Now, if you have the revolving loans of a credit card and you have the installment loans of a credit builder loan, oof, right there you have that credit mix, right? So now, here are 3 places that you can get a credit builder loan from. The first one is one of my favorites just because it's super simple to get approved for, and that's Self. The second place, it's a little more complicated because you do need a membership and you do need to pay $20 to get into this credit union. But the good thing is that they also do the credit builder loans. And PenFed is another one. It's a little bit harder to get into PenFed, but the good thing is if you were to do the credit builder loans from like Digital Credit Union or PenFed Credit Union, you actually get a super low interest rate in comparison to Self. Because if you were to do it with self, they charge anywhere from 12 to 13 to 14% interest for doing the credit builder loan with them. And I think that's a small price to pay for the simplicity that you get with doing it with self. Now, if you were to do it with Digital Credit Union and PenFed, the good news is that they charge a lower interest rate on doing these credit builder loans. They charge anywhere from 4 to 7%. Now, if you ask me for my personal recommendation, I'd rather you do credit builder loans with Digital Credit Union or PenFed just because you're establishing a relationship at the same time with a more established credit union, right? Now, here's the second option that you have. If you didn't like the idea of the credit builder loan, I wanted to give you a second option just so you can add credit mix into your profile. The second option is known as a savings secured loan, right? And it's basically the same thing as a secured credit card where you put the money up front. So let's say you put a deposit into the bank for $1,000 and then you go to the bank and you're like, hey, I want to use this $1,000 as a collateral in order to get a savings secured loan. Perfect. They'll take your deposit and then they'll give you a loan for the same $1,000 that you deposited. Now, you have X amount of time to pay that money back, and every time you make that payment, it gets reported to the credit bureaus. And at the end, once you pay that balance off of $1,000, you'll get the original $1,000 that they had as collateral for you. Now, here are two banks that give savings secured loans. The first one is very similar, you might be familiar, it's Digital Credit Union. The second one is PenFed Credit Union, right? Once you get two of these loans on your credit report, whether it be two savings secured loans or two credit builder loans or one credit builder loan, one savings secured loan, the question is, once you get two of them, congratulations, you now have credit mix. If you have any questions regarding credit mix or you have any questions on anything that we've covered in this course, please don't hesitate to bring it up in the community. That's the whole purpose of the community. So I'm able to answer the questions, and if I'm not able to answer the questions, I'll definitely have somebody in the community who's able to answer those questions. Now, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for coming.